had a major issue on the production line earlier this week, so the entire development package for this weekend has failed. Check your workstation for the details.
Well, that's certainly not the news I wanted upon my return of the F1 2018 career mode here for the Hungarian Grand Prix. I believe it was only a minor engine power upgrade. Might have been a major one, actually, for the power, which, yeah, it was indeed a major part. So that's a little bit of a frustration. However, we'll get that booked back in, and we'll have that come in place as when we're expecting the ultimate chassis upgrade. And it'll be a big double upgrade next time out for the German Grand Prix. Not the German Grand Prix, the Belgian Grand Prix. The flags are kind of the same. That's why I got it confused. It's the excuse I'm going with. None the less. Let's move in to qualifying at Hungary.
The excitement is starting to build here at the Hungaroring as the lights are about to go green for today's qualifying session. We expect some cars out on track any moment now.
As such, here we are out on track in the Hungarian Grand Prix qualifying, going for our very last attempt to try and see what we can do to get further up the grid. We currently reside P8. Can we put any improvement on that and challenge and out-qualify our teammate Sergio Perez? The turn one went a little bit better, especially on exit. We're about a tenth or so up as we come across the first sector split, but nowhere close to troubling the front runners, especially as my car struggling for grip through the blind left-hander. However, we're going to stay fully committed and attack the curbs through the chicane. It's the best way to go through there. We come across now the second sector split, running out wide, and we're about 2.5 tenths up, only 4 tenths off provisional pole position. However, the final sector on this circuit is my weakest one. It's just a lot of long corners waiting for when you can put the power down. We go wide there, compromise me a little bit on exit, and we've just got to wait for the car to rotate through the final corner, stamp on the power, hot lap mode, DRS open towards the lines, over 2 tenths improvement, and it puts us provisional P5 ahead of Sergio Perez, and that's what I was aiming for as we come to the end of the session. Unfortunately, times have been updated. Perez beats me by 17 thousandths of a second, but it's P5 and 6. Let's see what we can do at a track which I notoriously don't do very well at.
We've seen some astonishing Grand Prix here over the years, haven't we? The drama of 2015 is a recent example. Jenson Button's first win on a wet track in 2006, or in 1997, Damon Hill's heartbreak in the Arrows after a late gearbox failure cost him what would have been the team's only ever victory. What a wonderful place this is to come racing today. Located 12 miles northeast of the Hungarian capital Budapest, the 14 corners of the Hungaroring are steeped in history and prestige. Overtaking has always been difficult on this technical 2.7-mile circuit, but the last few years in particular have turned up some exceptional races. Let's hope we're in for another one here today. Anthony Davidson is here once again for today's Grand Prix. Let's talk about the captain. What do you make of their performance so far this season?
It's been a really solid year so far. There have been some incredible standout performances, but what's really impressed me has been the consistency. With this kind of form, I'm expecting another great race today.
You should have some space going into the first corner, so try to keep it tidy.
Thanks, Jeff. I'll certainly try to. Here we are on the grid and building to the lights. 5 are on for the Hungarian Grand Prix. Lights are out and away we go. Apparently, during the editing of this, I was not messing around. Didn't include anything about my setup or my strategy, but we're running about 3 laps over because I'm going to need the fuel mix to stay competitive. We dive down the inside of our teammate Sergio Perez and we try and get the best traction possible on exit of turn 1. We've got ourselves up to P3 ahead of Verstappen and Kimi Räikkönen. Vettel leads the way from Daniel Ricciardo. Then it's myself in 3rd position. Räikkönen fights his way back up to 4th. Now Verstappen retakes that position and Perez remains down in 6th as we charge into the 2nd sector. For the first time of asking, Perez has made contact with Kimi Räikkönen. He looked to be out of control through the blind left-hander and a big chunk of his front wing has come off. So I'm expecting to see Perez drop down the field. I've pretty much straight-lined that chicane, but it hasn't put me in any kind of position to capitalise against Ricciardo. So it looks as if hopefully the stewards really shouldn't have too much issue with that. But I'm pretty sure now it's only going to be myself flying the flag for forced ignorance. There's no pink dot There is a pink dot in amongst the traffic, but it is slowing the field down. We've done a 19.9, that was the best lap I can offer, but we are dropping back from Vettel and Ricciardo. So, like I sort of said in the build-up there, it's a track I pretty much historically don't do very well at. It's pretty much in the hope that I can just qualify semi-okay, get up the field in the early phase, and then just defend pretty much for the rest of the race. And that's exactly what I'm going to have to start doing now, as it looks to be on the start of lap 4, up to Rich and high. Verstappen in the slipstream with DRS would have thought about it. Unfortunately, we've made a huge mistake in the turn 1, outbraked ourselves. That is going to allow for a better exit, but Verstappen has got close enough. Will he be good enough to make a move into turn 2? And because I've made a second mistake, I think it might be, although Raikkonen has dived it down the inside of Verstappen, and he's been able to get through, and that pretty much saved us there to be able to retain third position. So, getting some news from Jeff there about the engine, and really, I'm sort of my only real strength of this car is in a straight line. If I'm losing straight line performance, as Raikkonen tried to have a go into turn 1, but we were able to retain the position. Yeah, it felt like my tyres had really gone away from me early on, and thankfully we're coming in at the end of lap 5 to get off these ultra softs, because they were feeling pretty disgusting early on. Like I say, you can see the top 2 have disappeared into the distance. I'm holding Raikkonen and Verstappen up, and that's backing them into both Mercedes and of course the Renault that's coming up. So here we go through the corner. Everyone else, actually, all the cars behind me, aside from one of the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton diving into the pits, so they have the potential to undercut me on those very worn ultra soft tyres. But because my pace, my race pace around the Hungaroring is that much of a concern to myself, they could potentially undercut me. So let's hope that extra lap on dead tyres really doesn't work in their favour. And more importantly, let's see if we can filter out in a bit of space so we can actually put our foot down, crank it up to Rich, and actually use some ERS. We have filtered out quite nicely in 11th place. Bit of space behind Romain Grosjean. So here we go, end of the lap. Have the AI cars, have the Ferrari and the Mercedes and the Renault, Red Bull as well, tried to get past me. Raikkonen very close on the exit of the pit lane, but was not able to get past me. Does look as if Hamilton has Hamilton's closer to Raikkonen now as well, so that overcut hasn't worked out. And you see Perez there in the pit lane, way down the field after losing a bit of his front wing, and you know, downforce kind of really important here. So end of lap 7, beginning of lap 8, we found ourselves up and a lot closer to Romain Grosjean. We're going to pass a couple of cars coming out the pits, and Verstappen, I believe, has put himself on another set of ultra soft. And you can see how that opening stint hasn't helped him, because he's now lost out to the Mercedes, or at least definitely one Mercedes he's lost out to there, and he's going on a much more aggressive strategy, whereas we've only got one more stop now left to make in this Grand Prix, whereas Verstappen's probably committing himself to a 2 unless he goes ultra soft medium, which wouldn't make a lot of sense thinking about it. But we are all over the back of Grosjean. This is one sector of the track where I was actually, I don't know if it was my driving style or the setup I was running on the car, but the car was actually feeling really good through this section. It was the final sector on the circuit where I was losing the most time, and we just need to keep as close to Grosjean as physically possible to be able to get the closest run possible out the final corner and use sort of rich mix, high ERS and DRS, as well as a bit of slipstream to try and get past in really the only major overtaking area on this circuit. You see, I'm doing my best. I've got everything turned up. Can we close in on Grosjean? It's going to be very late in the straight. If we do, it's going to be a bold, committed move. That's exactly what we've gone for. And I think we've just got it slowed down. I believe Grosjean may have actually locked up as well. He's going to try and have a go back at us, though. Round the outside of turn 2, we've managed to just keep a nice defensive line, and that's going to plop Grosjean between myself and Kimi Raikkonen. Now, hopefully we can pull away a little bit before Kimi makes his move. And on to lap 11, it looks as if that's kind of what's going on. Not a huge gap by any stretch of the imagination, because I want to keep a bit of fuel in reserve and build my ERS back up, because you can see it is looking a little bit low. Gasly is just down the road from us. I believe he started on the soft compound tyres. He's doing the one stop. So Vettel's disappeared into the distance. Then you have Ricciardo, and then Gasly is 5th. It looks as if that's Magnussen in 4th, as Raikkonen appears to be fighting Grosjean coming out of turn 1 and down towards turn 2. Can the Haas driver retain the position. He is on the inside of Raikkonen, but he's just got the superior grip and the superior car. Raikkonen fights his way past Romain Grosjean, who's now holding up the Mercedes now. As we move on to lap 15, we're still in the 21s, and we're still 3 seconds back from Pierre Gasly, as is my poor race pace, as the Force India is much better on paper than the Toro Rosso, but I just don't know what it is about this circuit. I just don't get on with it whatsoever, really. We move on to another lap. Are we closer to Gasly? Got a bit of a skewed view because Sainz came in for the medium tyre. So Sainz has made his one and only pit stop. We do look closer to Pierre Gasly. And Sainz has come in for his one and only pit stop and filters out between the Mercedes. So he's only a few seconds back from me, and he's made all of his pit stops. Meanwhile, Raikkonen tried to have a go around the outside of turn 2. We're definitely closing in to Gasly. Maybe a sign that his tyres are wearing out, and indeed Gasly pits in, as well as the Haas of Kevin Magnussen. So we're going to re-inherit third position. Not for very long, as Raikkonen screams past us on the outside. We dip into the slipstream of the Ferrari man, and we're going to go for a big lunge down the inside. Raikkonen thankfully saw it coming, turned out the corner, and we have just about kept that position. You see, when it comes to Hungary, you see a lot of the first corner over and over again, because it's the one corner on the track where action actually happens. So, just over halfway through the Grand Prix now, moving on to lap 18. I've butchered the exit of turn 1, and that's going to give Raikkonen a go into turn 2. He's pulled very far ahead. Once again, we're going to go deep on the brakes. We might have made a small bit of contact with the Ferrari on the way through. And you can see, interestingly enough, Sainz on the fresh medium tyre is stuck between the Mercedes quite nicely. And he's not exactly lost a lot of ground, albeit he hasn't actually looked to pass one of the Mercedes either. But an interesting observation nonetheless. I'm struggling through turn 1 now, and I've hampered my exit once again. Here comes Kimi Raikkonen on the outside. Can he make the move stick? Answer is no. He tried to cut back underneath and nearly succeeded there, Raikkonen, which, considering the 180 degree of the corner, is very impressive. He thinks about it into the blind left-hander, but doesn't commit. But that could have been a very scary crash if he did actually commit. But here we go. You hear it on the radio from Jeff. We're going to come in end of lap 20, bolt on another set of soft compound tyres, and run to the end of the race. The tyres, especially in this race, and especially now that I'm watching back, were dropping off horribly at the end of the stint. You should see Raikkonen there once again, just able to make such a move around the outside. And we had to come in before the Ferrari man, so his tyres, albeit only a lap younger than mine, you can clearly see the difference in confidence that he has in his car versus what I have in mine. But we're coming in now. Same lap as Daniel Ricciardo and same lap as Lewis Hamilton. Very similar to at the start of the race. I imagine Vettel then is also in the pits. I believe I saw a car there on mediums. Ricciardo's gone for softs. That would have been Sainz definitely on the mediums. Ricciardo's on soft. Hamilton's also fit soft. So I don't know if that's just... I don't know, I might have been looking at something incorrect there. So Magnussen goes through on the medium tyre, and so does Gasly. So if you remember, we were up behind Gasly before he pit in, and 6 laps later, we are still, unfortunately, behind Pierre Gasly. But we're on a fresh set of tyres. He is not. We also have a tyre advantage over him now. So, come the end of lap 21, unlike before his pit stop, we are much faster, and we've caught up with him. So, there are other cars in the pit lane. So, while they're in the pits getting serviced, we will be coming out the final corner, getting DRS in the slipstream. We should get a lovely slingshot now down towards turn 1, although Gasly moves slightly across the track to defend. It's not enough as we take a big old bundle of curb just to put him off cutting in the corner. And there's us now up into 5th place, and we will now attempt to hunt down Kevin Magnussen in the Haas, as he's the next man up the road. And then there's probably a gap of around about 10 or 12 seconds to Carlos Sainz. That's going to be the bigger challenge. In fact, Sainz is still ahead of Daniel Ricciardo, as has been the performance of that Renault. He's definitely king of the one-stoppers here today. We've now caught up to the back on lap 23 of Kevin Magnussen. You can just see the advantage, the car advantage that I have. I was running a lot of downforce for this particular circuit, because I know I've struggled in the past, and I wanted to try and at least be competitive in certain areas of the track. And just, yeah, the fresher tyres, the tyre advantage, but the dirty air was making it very difficult. That's why I was sort of trying a few interesting turning points, and that's why it appears that I'm cutting a lot of the corners and then running wide on exit, because the dirty air behind the Haas was not exactly making it a very pleasant drive, so to speak. But We're now going to set ourselves up, try and just get as close as possible out of the final corner. Open up the steering as soon as possible. We've got overtake mode, use as much ERS as possible, up to 200 miles an hour. We should be able to make a move on Kevin Magnussen into turn 1. That's exactly what we've done, and we've been able to keep it under control on exit as well. And Raikkonen's already closing in on him there, so Raikkonen closing in on Magnussen, who is down to 5th. We're up to 4th, and the next man in our sights is Carlos Sainz, currently sitting in that P3 position in the Renault. As we cross the timing split, he is 13 seconds up the road, and there are 11 laps remaining if you include the one we are on. So let's see what we can do once we've been released on lap 24, as we set the fastest middle sector of the race so far, and the gap is down to 11.7 seconds. Now that I've been released from the traffic, we do have a little bit of speed by the looks of things. It also looks like Raikkonen has got past Kevin Magnussen. He's now going to be on a charge to try and catch up to us, but I don't really want to take too much life out of these tyres, because as we saw at the end of the stint before, they died. Across the line, fastest lap of the race, 1:18.6. First person to break that barrier. And let's see what we can do for catching up to Sainz. I missed the timing split there. We're now going to cut on to the end of lap 27. You can see Magnussen has now fallen behind the Mercedes cars. Raikkonen's up closer behind me. I'm run out of fuel. I'm back in the 20s. And Sainz is still 11 seconds ahead of me. So I think Sainz has got me beat. I also think Raikkonen's got me beat by his perfect car placement. He went down the inside, didn't have enough time to switch back on him, and then he just parked the car beautifully on the inside of turn 1. So fair play to Kimi. He's totally done me the dummy there. So Raikkonen up to 4th. We are down for 5th, and I do believe we are still the only Force India in the points here today at the Hungarian Grand Prix. So Raikkonen has disappeared off into the distance. He's now 4.2 up the road, and Hamilton now within a second of me. So he's going to be challenging me soon into turn 1 with the assistance of DRS. And yeah, you just saw we're in the 22s. I was just sort of trying to bring the car home at this point, because I realised there was nothing more I could do. As long as I can defend against Hamilton into turn 1 and not sort of fall asleep like I did versus Raikkonen, I should be fine. Now bear in mind, you know, we do want to sign with the Mercedes team. And I've said this before in the past, you know, I want to be a Mercedes driver, but at the same point, I'm not just going to roll over if a Mercedes cruises up to the back of me, because we've got to show that we want to get our elbows out in those high-pressure situations, and this is exactly one of those. I mean, Hamilton hasn't got the speed to chase after Raikkonen anyway. The gap was already too big. We're now going to come on to the last lap of the Hungarian Grand Prix, and we're going to stick on board for the whole thing. I've butchered my exit out the final corner. We're going to use the rest of the fuel and the rest of the ERS we have. We don't really have much ERS, but we do have a bit of fuel into the slipstream of Hamilton. We're going to come diving down the inside. Big old chunk of curb. Hamilton saw it coming, turned out the corner. That opened it up for me to be able to re-overtake him there, coming through the first sector. But you can see the grip is totally gone. Even the wearing of the tyres, as to obviously where you've got the camber on the tyres, you can see they're wearing there on the inside. And this car was horrible to drive at the end of the stints here. Raikkonen, in just only about 5 or 6 laps, has got 9 seconds on me. But yeah, I put the ERS deployed down to none. Vettel says the fastest lap of the Grand Prix on the final lap, because of course he does. So yeah, it looks like Vettel's going to win the Hungarian Grand Prix, and you know, he pretty much led from lights to flag essentially, aside from the pit stop phases. Daniel Ricciardo, I imagine, is going to bring it home in second. And Carlos Sainz definitely showing that if you have a good enough car in the Renault, the one stop was going to work. But he's going to bring it home for P3. Kimi Raikkonen, of course, going to get P4. And unless something horrible happens to myself, like make a mistake out of the penultimate corner and just use, you know, the rest of the curb and some tarmac I shouldn't do, we're going to bring it home for P5 at one of the tracks I don't perform at.
Great drive, great drive. We're really happy with that performance.
So, here they come now, out onto the podium. Wherever you go, anywhere in the world, the prancing horse flags are dominant in the grandstands, and they're out in force again today. It's Ferrari on the top step once more.
So there you have it. Sebastian Vettel wins the Hungarian Grand Prix by 13 seconds over Daniel Ricciardo. Carlos Sainz getting the one stop to work in his Renault. He goes from 10th to 3rd. And Kimi Räikkönen there, dropping back from his original grid position, but fought his way past me up to P4. We, of course, went up from 6th to 5th, 41 seconds. And I lost like just nearly 10 seconds to Räikkönen in the space of 7 laps. Then we have the Mercedes boys of Hamilton in 6th. Bottas in 7th, Gasly there with a one-stop going from 13th to 8th and getting crucial points for Toro Rosso. Alonso stays 9th after starting 9th, but nothing really to be disappointed about. And Grosjean rounds off the points in P10. Perez eventually fought back to P12, so I don't know what happened with the rest of his race, but he did clearly. It wasn't too far off points, only 4 seconds off a point, Perez, so onto the driver standings. Vettel is the first man to break the 200-point barrier onto 206 points. He pulls to now 40 points clear of myself, with Perez another 26 points behind me. Then comes Raikkonen and Ricciardo to round off the top 5 of the driver standings. On the constructor side of things, Ferrari now 36 points clear of Force India, with Red Bull remaining in 3rd, 191, and Mercedes 173 points. So we're now going to move in. And I was just having a little look, see what I was worth to some teams, because we are at the contract negotiation point. Just wanted to see who's where. Mercedes is one of the top ones, probably the top one, but very close with a couple of other teams. But that's still where we want to go. Just checking in, getting Claire to do a bit of research. But we're going to negotiate. We're going to see what we can do. I'll, of course, drop the qualifying position because I'm not a confident qualifier. But I'm going to say, look, I'll be the guy that gets 4th or 5th. So I want that level 3 race bonus. Upgrade speed is nice for the all upgrade time to be reduced by a week. So I want to keep that as level 3 ideally. Simultaneous development doesn't need to be unlimited. So let's sort of see. I'm just reviewing here because I've got a lot of room for my value. So I thought about to see obviously what that brings. So 2 level 3s, level 2 for simultaneous and level 2 for the pit stop. Let's see what that does for the contract. Okay.
We're asking for too much here. We need to make some compromises.
Little too high. So we are going to have to bring that down by 1 more level. Let's hope that's enough.
Our proposal has been accepted. The new contract will take effect from the next race weekend.
Alright, fantastic. So we got that. And it goes to show the difference between a level 2 and a level 3 on the contract. So we're getting a major power upgrade for Belgium and an ultimate chassis upgrade for Belgium. So the Force India is going to be like a, shooting up the pecking order, so to speak, in the Belgian Grand Prix. So it's going to put our engine, our engine's already ahead of everyone else, but it's going to go massively further up in that direction. But guys, that has been the Hungarian Grand Prix. Thank you very much for watching, and I do apologise about a delay in uploads. You know, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Sometimes real life gets in place of this, and that's just how it is sometimes, you know. So leave a like if you did enjoy that, and comment any feedback down below. It would be greatly appreciated. Next time out, of course, we do have Belgium, and I've already covered the upgrades we're going to get. It's one of my favourite tracks. Let's see what happens. But yeah, we're getting to that point of the season where if there's going to be a regulation change, I guess we'll see. Guess we'll see, if any, what that is about. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all. Wait for it. Next time.